Hi, Kimberly. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, before we start our meeting, I want to let you know that whatever you tell me today is confidential unless you're harm to yourself or others. Do you have any questions about that?
No.
No? Okay. So, to start our conversation, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Kamali. I'm a junior at Rutgers. My major is nursing, and um, currently I'm doing clinicals.
Okay.
I'm in the labor and delivery unit. It has been very interesting. In the future, when I graduate, I want to go for my NP, and I have an interest in pediatrics because I really love kids. So that's really my passion, and currently just doing as best as possible.
Okay, so to summarize, you're a junior, you're majoring in nursing, you plan to go for your nurse practitioner master's degree,
Yes,
and then you have an interest in pediatrics. And right now you're in clinicals.
correct.
So can you tell me a little bit about how's your experience with clinicals right now? Like the good, the bad?
Well, it's very good. I feel like I'm finally able to put into practice what I've been learning the past 2 years. I just feel like one day is not enough to get experience. I wish we can have more of the clinical settings and less of like the lectures and stuff like that. But other than that, it's very good. I've learned a lot, and I've been able to like get more confidence in myself and in what I know I know what to do, and what I don't know what to do, what I have to work on, and it's just been like very good.
Okay. No, I completely agree with you. Sometimes, we need more field experience to actually see if we are able to do the work that we're going to do in the future.
Yes.
And you just mentioned that you do this only once a week, or
Yeah.
how does it work?
Yeah, it's just once a week. Currently, we're doing just a 6 hour shift. Next semester, we'll be doing 12-hour shifts, and we'll be doing like a different unit.
Okay.
But yeah, just 6 hours once a week. I don't think it's enough because a lot of people need more in order to improve their skills and their confidence, and just to like know that you're able to do something.
Yeah. And can you talk about a little bit about how this experience, this field work kind of slash clinical experience boosts your confidence?
That it helps a lot. I know in the beginning I was like scared. I thought that I wasn't prepared for clinicals. I thought I didn't know anything. I just thought that I was only able to sit in a class and do an exam. But as you're like working, things come back to you, and you see the different ways you can help the patients and the nurses. Because right now, we're just like kind of like following nurses, and like some nurses will allow you to do certain things. Others will just stay with you, depending on like how comfortable you feel in doing what you're doing at that moment.
Okay. So that seems that you're gaining a lot of good experiences.
Yes.
And I know you said that you switch units.
Yes.
So what unit are you in right now?
I'm in labor and delivery at Overlook.
Okay.
Yeah, and then next semester I'll be doing pediatrics. And then follow that I'll be doing psych, and then geriatrics, and it just continues with different units.
Okay, so right now you're doing to get a better understanding. So you're doing the labor and delivery right now for 6 hours,
Yeah.
and then in next year you'll be doing geriatrics and for 12 hours.
No, next year I will be doing pediatrics.
Oh, pediatrics for 12 hours. And then what about the other units that you mentioned?
Yeah, as well. Like it goes 12 hours. It just depends. Some people have 2 6-hour shifts, and others have 12-hour shifts. But personally, I have the 12-hour.
Okay.
I don't know about geriatrics because that's my senior year. So like I'll know that after.
Yeah. And how do you find the balance with schoolwork and like your clinical experience? Like,
I think it's hard. Well, now it's my junior year, and in comparison to like my sophomore year, we have less time, and it's a lot about like time management and how well you're able to do that. I have clinicals on Mondays and follow that. Like Tuesdays, I have class at 8:30. So sometimes coming at 7 o'clock, coming out at 7 o'clock from the hospital, it's like very hard. You feel tired. You've been standing up the whole 6 hours.
Okay.
So sometimes coming home to do homework to study, it's really hard.
Yeah.
I'm able to manage it now, but like I am very tired, and I wish like I said before, like we had more of the clinical experience and less of the lecture part, because I feel like a 3-hour lecture and then a 6 hour clinical. It's a lot.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like it's a lot, like trying to balance everything, your clinical work, and then coming to class, and then coming to study, making sure that you pass all your classes.
Yes.
And I know you mentioned that in comparison to last year, it seems like the transition has been a little bit more complicated. Can you talk about that? Is it because maybe like now you have an additional responsibility, or is it because you're actually putting to test the knowledge you have, so there's a little bit more pressure?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Even though the clinical portion is only once a week, I think it takes it takes 6 hours of your day that you could have been studying. But not only that, I just feel like your freshman and sophomore year, it's even though it's hard because it is nursing, it's not as difficult at it as it is now because now like let's say our questions for the exams are more on applications instead of like straight memorization. So sometimes you can memorize things,
Okay.
but if you can apply it, it's very like hard for you to understand what the question is asking you, and you
Okay.
can like you can answer the question wrong very easily. I just feel like if we started the application portion earlier on the like nursing program, it will be easier by the time we're actually expected to know how to apply different things. So I just think the application part is the hardest because you need to know how to read a question. You need to know like what are the details in this question. So sometimes going from straight memorization to application could be very difficult for certain students.
Yeah.
Personally, it is hard for me.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how sometimes, like, obviously, I feel like in any major, as you go and continue your studies, like your junior and senior year is going to become like the little kind of like more challenging years since it's coming to a point that you need to understand the field that you're studying. But I also understand how you say like you should start the application process earlier because that way when it comes for, time to clinicals, you have a better understanding like, oh, if this happened, what should I do or what are the following steps? But it's also important to realize that you need to build a good foundation of knowledge before you can actually come up with like what is supposed to happen because you need to know kind of like the foundation stuff, the basic stuff in order to think about like why is this the correct answer. So that's I feel like you bring a good point. Like I feel like especially for nursing, it's just a 4 year program, and then you can go directly to your field after passing your. I feel it's at the NCLEX.
Yes, NCLEX.
Like you need to be ready because a nursing career is kind of tough because like you don't know what's gonna come at your kind of like what is it? What do you call it? Not office. You guys are like what? Patient room.
Yeah.
You don't know what's gonna come in those
Patient
doors.
care,
Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't know if like somebody's gonna be injured or somebody's gonna be like if they're death or life penalty. Like it's so many things that you need to be on your toes that you just
That's
need
right.
to. What comes next? What should I do? What is this process? So have you seen that lately in your like clinicals?
Yeah, I'm an EOF student, so like we had a summer program where we had like it was called pre-junior, so we kind of like had a preview of the things we were gonna see our junior year, and we actually had I believe it was like 4 weeks of clinicals. It wasn't the full week, but it was like 2 days per week. So we had like I think it was like 10 clinical days. I was in trauma, and it was like very it was like very hard. Like I just feel like you had to be on your toes. You had to know what you were doing, and you had to think fast on the spot. So like I feel like trauma was a very good experience because I was able to put into practice everything I've learned. Now I'm in maternity, so it's like more like assessment, like you want to make sure the mother's good, the baby's good, and it's more like it's slower, even though you're still like putting different things into practice. But I just feel like the trauma unit helped me to like realize that you have to think on the spot. You have to know your stuff in order to be in that career. So that's why I always say like maybe like more days of clinicals will be better, and like students will be able to put into practice what they're learning in school because sometimes you're like okay I'm learning in school, but then when you go in the clinical settings, if you're not comfortable, if you don't feel confident with yourself, then all that you have learned, it might not come in the spot when you need it. So I just feel like maybe having more experience will help with that.
Definitely. So do you feel like the nursing program is kind of lacking that balance where like like the knowledge you're gaining through the other classes and the clinicals, Like, how does that work? How many classes are you taking additional to your clinical work?
I'm taking 4 classes.
So clinical work is a course by itself, or like is it an additional requirement?
No,
do you get credit for it?
We do get credit for it because we're not getting paid for it, and we're actually putting hours into it.
Of course.
And it's during school.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is like you have what's called childbearing. So it's like the lecture portion, and then it's connected with the clinical portion. So I feel like they kind of do it like a lecture in the lab.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that. So the whole course is 6 credits.
Okay.
So you in the lecture you learn like what you're supposed to see and what you're supposed to do in certain things, and then in the clinical portion, that's where you put everything into practice.
Okay. So do you feel like it is kind of like a great balance of the courses that you're doing with your like practical experience?
I feel like they are making a really good effort in trying to make do a balance in between them, because I just feel like they can't take certain classes out because you need them. Like you need health assessment, and you need nursing care provider, and you need the childbearing in order to know what you have to do in the clinical portion. So sometimes I say that like, oh yeah, it would be better if you have like more clinical hours or stuff like that. But then again, our schedule is so tight. Like you have all these classes together, so that's why I was like maybe like in class have less of a 3-hour lecture and more like of a clinical portion.
Okay.
For them,
yeah. So what I like to ask to students overall in general is kind of like the miracle question. Mm-hmm. So I know you mentioned like that you're overwhelmed with the amount of like things. Yeah. Now you're preoccupied with like not only with your studies and homework, but with clinicals and like kind of like balancing that clinical and like studying. So my miracle question would be, what do you think the program can do better to kind of help nursing students like, feel less overwhelmed with like balancing like the good grades and like the clinical works? Because I know the nursing program is very demanding. Yeah. It has a bunch of requirements that you need to keep a certain GPA. So just making sure that everybody stays on track.
I just feel like as a program, I feel like professors should come together more and they should like talk to each other, because personally this year I have experienced like all my exams are back to back. Like certain students have 2 exams the same day and then another exam the following. And they all know that their class demands a lot. It's a lot of reading, it's a lot of understanding. So I just feel like maybe if they will talk to each other and say, you know what, my exam will be this week. Can yours be the next one? Or can you leave a day in between? So like we have mentioned that in class a couple of times, but their excuse is, oh, we already reserved the computer lab because our exams are on computers.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that shouldn't be an excuse. Like if you should do more for your students and be more concerned about them, because right now if I fail a class, I'll be a whole year behind. I have to wait another semester and start again the next fall semester. So I just feel like maybe like talking to each other, like my exam will be this week, yours will be the other one, or vice versa, whatever works better for them. But it shouldn't be as back-to-back, because it's a lot of information. And it's valuable information that we should learn and not just like cram just to pass an exam. It shouldn't come to the point where it's just like, okay, I just want to pass. It should come to the point where I want to learn this, I want to know it well. So I just feel like maybe if there was more communication between the staff, it would be better.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree that having tests back-to-back, especially when you have to have the GPA requirement, you need to pass into your clinicals, it's kind of like you need kind of like the faculty to communicate with each other. Like, I think we're putting too much pressure to our students. Let's coordinate to see like maybe you can have a day and like a gap day to study and stuff like that. But sometimes, unfortunately, because this is college and it can happen to any program, it doesn't work that way for whatever reason, and obviously it's not ideal. Are you aware of the resources that you have on campus that will help you like study? And kind of alleviate that overwhelming thing, like, because I know, like, maybe you have your own study thing, but I just want to see if you're taking advantage of the resources on campus.
We do have resources. I know we have like extra hours in lab where we can practice for a nursing care provider and health assessment. But like the past week, I had 4 exams back to back. And then our professor came to one of the class and say, I am very disappointed that you guys haven't taken advantage of the resources, like the lab portion, and like and you guys haven't like signed up for the extra lab hours. But then again, I was worried about another lab exam that I had. It's a test out, so it's a pass or fail. So I was worried about that. So we all signed up for that one lab. Like sometimes it is very easy for them to say you guys are not taking advantage. It's not that we not taking advantage. It's that we don't have the time for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, it's a balance. It's either I pass this lab this week or I study for yours and fail this one. You know what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes it's very hard for you to decide which lab are you going to study for because you have other stuff that are right there at the moment that you need to pass. So we do have resources, and I've been going to a couple of them. So a lot of the ones that I go is just the lab because the professor that helps us in the lab, she's there for every class. Like there's different lab sections, so she's there for every lab section. So she does know what we're doing, and she goes over everything together. So I just think that that's very good. We also have tutoring for certain classes. I don't think we have tutoring for all of them, but I know for the math part we do have tutoring, and then for the others they just like recommend like a lot of group study and like just reading the book. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you know your resources, even though unfortunately you share that sometimes it's kind of like complicated to take advantage of those resources. I think it's really good that that you go to those tutoring sessions, that you go to that lab, the supplemental lab instruction that you told me about. But another thing that maybe if you get a chance, because I know you explained a little bit that it was complicated, is to take advantage of office hours, because your professor does have office hours, so maybe getting direct information, or like how should I study before there's like what kind of direction I should go to, then maybe that will help kind of alleviate the kind of like the overwhelming feeling about the test taking. But overall, thank you for sharing so much about the nursing program. I feel like I learned so much. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Then that'll be all.
Thank you.
With that.